Who told you about the event? Him? How did you find out about the event? Who's your brother? Oh, brother? Thingies? Alright. How did you find out about the event? Thingies? Inshallah. They give you a burger and eat it, inshallah. Anyone else? That's new? Yes, how did you find out? How did you find out? Sorry? Same bus, same school. Which school? Anyone else that's new? You only started coming here from this time. How did you find out about NextGen? Okay, he's your cousin. Is he here? Ah, okay. Alright, anyone else? Yes? Which one? Oh, okay. You're pretty new too, right? Or you've been around? Okay. And who told you about NextGen? Okay. And what got you back into it again? Who? Rahil? From same school? MashaAllah. طيب, should we get started? Inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ala ma ba'd. It's a pleasure to be able to present to you all, inshallah, today on a very important topic. And this is the second last presentation this term on the theme of honor in Islam. We talked about what is honor in Islam. Then we spoke about how the Muslims were at the top of society. Then we spoke about what led to the Muslims falling apart. And today we're going to talk about how can we bring back the revival of the Ummah. How can we bring back the revival of the Ummah? Okay? We'll move to the next slide, inshallah. So today's talk is going to revolve around this one ayah. Now there are many attempts to revive the Ummah, historically speaking, in the past 100 years. Who knows what the last major ruling Islamic government was? Excellent, Ottoman Empire. And when did that fall apart? Who knows? No, before that. Around there. If I remember correctly, that's 1924. Is that correct? Yeah. So that's about 100 years ago exactly. So for the past 100 years, Muslims, it would be unfair to say they just sat there and said, oh, all right, we're not going to do anything. No, there were many attempts, many revival movements across the Middle East, across the Indian subcontinent, in Turkey, and so on and so forth. And we're not going to dismiss their efforts. They all played a role. They all gave it their best shot. Okay? Today's talk is more to give you some general principles on how we can bring back revival and what you can do on an individual basis to contribute to the revival of the Ummah. Okay? And the topic of the Ummah is close to our hearts because of what reason? Why is the topic of the Ummah so close to our hearts right now? Yes, Imthal? We need it the most. What else? What's happening around the world? Excellent, the war in Gaza. That's one of the main reasons why there's a new discussion about reviving the Ummah. So let's talk about this at one ayah. So we always go back to the Quran for our guidance. And Allah SWT speech is the best speech. And in this one ayah we can extract 5 traits that we need to have to revive the Ummah. Is there a recitation of the thing? Yeah. Is it on the next slide? Is this one? Oh. Maybe go back and then. Oh. I just wanted to briefly talk about the start of the ayah. O believers, whoever among you abandons their faith, Allah will replace them with others. Meaning, if the Muslims, whether it's myself or yourself, or any particular community, any particular nation, we abandon following Islam, Allah will bring forth a people and replace us with those people. And those people will have these traits, which indicates that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to have these traits in order for us to establish Islam on earth. Because if we don't, what's the result? Be new people that will establish these traits. So either we become the people of these traits, or we become replaced by those who will uphold these traits.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So the first trait we're going to speak about, so there's 5 traits in this ayah. And the first of them is yuhibbuhum wa yuhibbuna. Those people, Allah loves their people. So the people that are going to replace those who turn away from the religion, the new people that are going to take over, Allah loves them and they love Allah. Next slide. So we all know that Allah has created us to worship Him. So the relationship between us and Allah is ibadah. Like the relationship you have between yourself and your parents, between yourself and your siblings. The relationship between you and Allah is a relationship of ibadah. And ibadah, we often translate it to worship, right? However, the scholars have said that ibadah is actually the pinnacle of love. Imagine if you had a pyramid of love. So at the bottom of the pyramid is like the lowest form of love, and the tip of the pyramid or the hierarchy is like the highest form of love. The scholars have said that the ibadah is the highest form of love, to the point where you worship the object of love, in this case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we know the goal of our existence, our entire purpose, to worship Allah. And now we've understood that love is the core of this ibadah. Without love, our ibadah is bleak. Our lives are bleak, and Allah won't give us victory to people who He doesn't love. So the first question I want to discuss with you guys is, what are the traits that Allah loves? And try your best to provide evidence from the Quran or a hadith as well. As-sabiqun. What's the evidence for this? Whoever said this? The forerunners. Allah mentions in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ أُولَٰئِكَ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ فِي جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ. So Allah's telling us the people who are the forerunners, the people who are always competing to do what makes Allah love them, Allah's going to make them close to Him on Yawm al-Qiyamah, on Day of Judgment, in Jannah. So of course, if Allah's making you close to Him on Day of Judgment, that's of course a sign of Allah's love. So excellent. The people who strive to keep Islam, وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Excellent. That's an ayah I was going to touch upon. Having taqwa of Allah, being conscious of Allah, and acting upon that by keeping away from what makes Allah displeased and doing what makes Allah pleased. Allah loves those who follow the Prophet ﷺ. Excellent. So if you say you love someone and you don't act upon it, you don't treat them nicely, it's just lip service. It's the same in our relationship with Allah. If I know every single person he would say the love of Allah, but if you don't implement it and it's not practical and it's not evident on your actions and the way you act, it's just lip service, and it shows that the love isn't really in your heart. Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. Having ihsan, excellent. Inna Allah yuhibbul muhsinin. Allah loves those who love to meet Him, as the Prophet ﷺ said, excellent. Alright, excellent answers. Allahu barik. So now let's move on. So we know the traits that Allah loves are many, and it's very evident in the Quran and the Sunnah, as you guys have mentioned. And there's many more in the ahadith. For example, Allah loves those who show love to others. So those who love their brothers in Islam, Allah shows love to them as well. Allah also loves those who do the obligatory deeds and come close to Him through it. Allah loves those people. And there's many other traits and actions which Allah loves. However, I want to focus on what are the signs that you love Allah. All right? Put your hand up if you love Allah. Of course, that's everyone. But now I want you to go through these traits and use this as a test for yourself. Ask yourself as I go through these, all right, measure yourself against each of these tests, all right, to determine whether you truly love Allah and how deeply rooted that love is in your heart. The first one I want to speak about is willing to do for the beloved. When someone really loves something, all right, you have to understand love is something we all know. But the love to Allah is something exclusive. And when you love something, it's one of the greatest driving forces for you to sacrifice for what you love. So the people that love Allah, they are willing to go through anything to make Allah happy, and willing to sacrifice and endure for Allah's pleasure. And as I go through these examples, the next slide, we're going to go through, inshallah, some clips of some moments of resilience and some moments from that the brothers and sisters of Palestine are experiencing. And I want you guys to remember these signs and try to link these signs to the clips I'm going to show you from Gaza. Okay? So, one sec, go back. Alright. Sorry, just go back to me. Previous slide. Alright. Secondly is to be alone with the beloved. Think about yourself when you have a moment of seclusion. When you're on your own, in that moment of seclusion, in the opportunity, how do you use that time? All right. For example, you're at school, you're waiting for your parents to pick you up, or you're at home, waiting for lunch to get ready, just sitting at the table. At that moment of seclusion, or the moment when you're on your own and there's nothing else for you to do, what do you do at that time? Do you take out your phone? You start scrolling on your phone? What do you do in that time? It wasn't a question. I have questions for you later, inshallah. So, in that time, a person that loves Allah, he will take the opportunity to remember Him and come closer to Him. Number 3, loving the speech of the beloved. And by the way, all these traits I'm mentioning, you can apply them to a person as well. So if you love a person, these traits apply as well. So loving the speech of the beloved. And of course, the speech of Allah is the Quran. So a person, similar to what I said before, whenever they have the chance, they take the opportunity to read the Quran and connect with the Quran. And again, I'm going to show you guys later how the people of Gaza, how the secret to the resilience and the steadfastness amidst all the chaos they're going through, all the destruction, the killing and everything around them, what keeps them steadfast is the connection with the Quran and the love for the Quran they have. Number 4 is often remembering the beloved. And this happens when you truly love Allah, you remember Him automatically. All right? Whenever something happens, you're naturally gravitating to the remembrance of Allah. And this is evident in everything else. If you love cars, you're always speaking about cars. If you love football, you're always speaking about football, the latest match, the scoreboard, everything. And finally, practically prove of the loved. And this was mentioned in the previous slide when I asked you guys what are the traits that Allah loves. You guys, and the evidence for this is the ayah where Allah says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Allah is telling the Prophet ﷺ to tell the people, if you truly love Allah, then follow me, as in follow the Prophet ﷺ. So a sign of your love for Allah is that you try and you use your limbs to implement and actualize that love. So now let's go to the next slide. Can you pause them? Can you just play them one by one? I want your voice to focus on the subtitles. So I want you guys to think about this, and can you guys tell me which signs, from the signs we've covered previously, which signs are displayed in this mother? What are the signs displayed in this mother, and what impact does the love of Allah have on her? How does it empower her? Hamza. Mm-hmm. Excellent. If you remember the first thing we mentioned, someone that loves something, you're willing to endure for it. If you love playing games or you love watching a television show, you're willing to cut down in your sleep and ruin your physical health to enjoy that thing. So for someone that loves Allah, they are willing to go through anything in order to please Allah. As you can see, the sister, may Allah reward her and grant her steadfastness, she has suffered things that many of us, maybe, may Allah protect us from it, will probably never come to this level of suffering. Yet she has incredible resilience and trust in Allah and is willing to sacrifice this for Allah. Let's watch the next clip. All right, from the traits we mentioned before, again, what trait can you see in this young boy who was pulled out from the rubble? What is the trait you can see in this young boy that shows his love for Allah? What's your name? Abdul Rahman. Tafadhal. Excellent. In this moment, what would be on a normal person's mind? The last thing on your mind would be how to get out of here. I'm in pain. The pain will probably be taking over your emotions and you won't be able to think straight. Yeah, in this dire situation, not only is he remembering Allah, but he is recounting and strengthening himself with certain verses of the Quran. And if you guys follow the translation, it shows that this young boy, who's probably the age of all you he around your age, he is remembering ayat which relate to his context. He doesn't despair at the oppression against him, yet he uses the Quran to keep him steadfast. He's looking at the world through a Quranic lens. He's looking at the world with glasses, all right? And everything he processes everything he sees in the world through what the Quran teaches. And the last one, I won't play it, is a young boy. He was martyred. He passed away, and when he was uncovered, it was found that in his hand he was holding a card, and that card had written the remembrance of Allah that you're meant to say in the morning and evening. This last one, what's the trait that we mentioned which is exemplified by this young boy? Ibrahim? Excellent. Often remembering Allah. Those who love Allah, they often remember Him. And this boy, since he often remembered Allah, Allah allowed him to die in that state. All right? Remember this. The way you live your life is the way you're going to die. The way you live your life is the way you're going to die. This boy, you can see clearly, he was holding a piece of a sheet of adhkar in his hand. All right? He used to constantly remember Allah. So Allah allowed him to die in that beautiful state. So we should always strive to embody the love of Allah in our hearts. We should try to increase it by doing a few things. I just want to mention one thing for you to increase your love in Allah, and that one thing is to remember the favors of Allah upon you. From all the sources of happiness you have in your life, all the people that have come in your life that have given you anything good, all the goodness, all the blessings you have in you have in your life is from Allah. Take a moment in every single day of your life to think about the blessings in Allah, and inshallah that will increase your love for Allah. And use this love and carry it in all your worship. When you go to Salah next time, don't only worship Allah because, of course you should worship Him because you fear the punishment and you hope for the reward. However, the main driving force in your worship, the main driving force in your ibadah should be a love for Allah. You worship Him because of the love you have for Him.
Before I start the next point, let's get everyone to stand up on this side and move across, fill in the gaps. Mustafa and Mukhtar, can you two come to the front here, since you have so much to talk about? Right to the front here. Maybe other presenters have higher tolerance for disrespect, but I don't. Okay? So I am more than happy to send people home if I see that they don't respect the masjid and they don't respect the content. You don't have to respect me, I don't care, but you have to respect what we're saying. Okay? Is that crystal clear? Crystal clear? Everyone's in agreement? Yes. All right, wonderful. Can we get you guys to answer this question? Are Muslims united? Why, if you think they are, and why not if you think they're not? We spoke about this in a bit of detail last presentation, but I wanted to see your thoughts, and if you're new, I want to see what new things you can add to the conversation, inshallah. Sorry? No, just if you have a reason, it's good. So are they yes or no, and why? So someone said yes because we all worship the one only God. So just because we worship Allah together, does that mean we're always going to be united? A Christian could say, from a certain sect, I worship one God too. And the Jew can say, I worship one God too. So we all united together? I don't know, let's see. They are not. I have personally seen, I won't mention the rest of it. Basically, there is pride amongst different Muslims. Not necessarily because they all have different opinions. Okay, good. Yes, because we are one ummah. All right. They're united in the belief of one God, but they're not united in the sense of unity as a whole ummah. Excellent. No, as there are many sects of Islam. Currently, no. If so, then these Muslim countries will unite to help Palestine. Excellent. No, they are not united because if the current problem is happening and because of the different sects we are divided into. We'll move to the next, just go to the slide. Don't move to the next slide. Yeah, just leave it here. Allah SWT says in the ayah, أَذِلَّةٍ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The second trait of these people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will choose is that they are soft and humble with the believers. Now if you look at the Quranic discourse, I have a multiple choice question for you. I'm going to give you 5 names and you have to tell me which of the 5 is mentioned in the Quran. Ready? Ready? Sunni. That's number 1. Sunni. Shafi'i. Ikhwani. Tablighi. And Shia. Not Shia in this linguistic sense, but Shia as in reference to a sect. Which of the 5 is mentioned in the Quran? Yes? Shia? Not the linguistic Shia. Sunni? Do you know the ayah? No? None. Excellent. None of them are mentioned in the Quran. I'm not denying that these terms exist, but what does the Quran call Muslims? Who knows? Umar? What's the Arabic word? Mu'mineen, Muslimin. Huwa sammakumul Muslimin. Also, he named you Muslims. So when we leave off the Quranic discourse and we look at, okay, what type of Muslim are you? Are you this Muslim or that Muslim? Are you that type or this type? Okay? Then we fall into a lot of problems. Okay? The ayah says, أَذِلَّةٍ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. They are soft with all believers, meaning anyone who says La ilaha illallah, they are soft with them. Whether they're from the same country, the same madhab, the same masjid, the same community or not, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Once we are able to overcome our internal racism and our sectarianism and our division, then we can move forward. Because the ayah says, أَذِلَّةٍ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Another ayah, similar to this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Sahaba. He says, رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. They are merciful with each other. Mercy, mercy. So if someone walks in right now into this masjid and they're full of tattoos and they're wearing short shorts and they have no top, but they say, I'm Muslim, what is our obligation towards them? What is our obligation towards them? Before that, what's our attitude towards them? To be soft with them. He said, brother, do you know there's a awrah, you have to cover your awrah and so on? Okay, here, maybe you didn't have the clothing, we'll give it to you. Yeah? But what often happens, and let's be real with ourselves, if someone was to walk in like that, we'll all be judging them. Look at this guy's come to the masjid now. Where is this? Doesn't even know the awrah. What an ignoramus. Yeah? Yeah? He must be from some like lame sect somewhere. Doesn't know that to cover the awrah. Comes to our masjid, Markaz Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, like this. That's the reality. We're quick to judge them. Fadl. We're just going to have the adhan, inshallah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
I won't go too deep into this topic because next term we have an entire theme on unity. But I want to mention one example. Who knows what al-muhajirun are from the Sahaba? Who knows? Who's heard of this term? Al-muhajirun. Only 3 people? 4? Okay. Al-ansar? Who's of ansar? Yeah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He calls them that. He says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. From the muhajirin, so those who migrated from Mecca to Medina with the Prophet ﷺ, and Ansar, the people of Medina who gave victory to the Prophet ﷺ. He calls them, Allah uses these terms. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges this term, how important it is. Yet when one day there was a disagreement between a muhajir and a Ansari, they began to call for help against one another using these names. So the muhajir said, Ya al-muhajirin, O muhajirin, come and help me. And the Ansari said, Oh Ansar, come and help me. Then the Prophet ﷺ got really upset. And he said, are you calling with the call of Jahiliyyah? Remember these 2 names, forget Sunni, Shia, Hanafi, Hanbali, all that. Those are like modern names. This is names, titles affirmed in the Quran by Allah. Despite that, they were used for the wrong purpose in that incident. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ reprimanded them for that. Despite, it's such an honorable name that they left everything to migrate to Medina. And for the other group, they did everything to support their brothers of the Muhajirin. Yet, the Prophet was disappointed in them. Now, what about the Ummah today? We divide on so many things. And we don't even have Allah's approval for what we call ourselves. We don't have Quranic approval. They did. And despite that, they were reprimanded. So unity is a huge topic. And we'll talk about this in detail next term, inshallah. Next slide, please. The third trait is أَعِزَّةٍ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. They are stern with the enemies. So the Muslim, he's balanced. When it's his believing brother, if his believing brother says La ilaha illallah, automatically they have friendship, they have mercy, they have softness, they have humbleness towards each other. And if the person doesn't say La ilaha illallah, of course we treat them with good Islamic manners, but we stick to our principles. We are firm and strong upon what we believe. Now this is a world map. These countries in green is where the Muslim population is more than 50%. 50% above. I would like a volunteer. Who wants to be a volunteer for a little thing? Yes. Can you point to me where Gaza is? Now come to the front and point it on the map. Where Gaza is. It's okay if you get it wrong. It's a try. At least you had the courage. Where's Gaza? Excellent. See how this one's a different color? Yeah, it's around there somewhere. Okay? Excellent. See what's around this? Muslims all the way there. Muslims all the way here, right? You can sit down. Jazakallah khair. Yeah? It's a little strip of land is surrounded by that many Muslim countries. Whether they're Arab, non-Arab, doesn't matter. Yeah, what can we do for them? Because why? This guy's made a peace treaty with them. This guy's made a peace treaty. This guy's made... We're normalizing ties. Is that stern with the enemies of Islam? And you might say, oh, but you know the Palestinian Muslims, they're not on the same methodology as I. That doesn't matter. They're Muslims and they're fighting who? Non-Muslims, kuffar. It's a battle between Islam and kufr. So there's only one side to choose. That's Islam. It doesn't put aside what you think of the methodology or the politics of it. It's Islam versus kufr. Okay? Yet despite that, we can't do anything for them. Yeah? And this is because we have normalized ties with them. You might say, oh, you know, how could they? How could those leaders do such a thing? But the reality is, and Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah mentions this, the leaders that lead you are a reflection of yourself. The leaders that lead you are a reflection of yourself. You might say, oh, you know, I'm staunch, I don't deal with the kuffar like that. Yeah? But your mind has been colonized. They have taken over your mind. You might act all tough outside, but you can't live without Uber Eats. Yes or no? You can't live without Netflix. You can't even live without your phone, which is produced by them, by their companies. So you might say, oh yeah, I'm not like, how could those leaders do such a thing? Leaders are a reflection of ourselves. Until we take ourselves out of this ideological colonization, yeah? Where our brains, our minds have been taken over by them, then, only then we can talk about giving victory to the ummah. But until we may look non-white, but everything we do is the same as John and Bob, then what's the difference between us and them? So, أَذِلَّةٍ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَعِزَّةٍ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ. Next slide. There's actually one more point. Can we zoom in a bit to the image? Can you do this or no? طيب. While he tries to zoom in, this is where Gaza is. This is where the US military bases are in the Muslim land. All these red dots. Yeah? Just to highlight to you that, okay, beautiful. Even though we are more than 50% Muslim in every country around Gaza, we have allowed the enemies of Islam to set up shop in our backyard. Okay? And obviously, we personally cannot do anything about this. This is out of our control. We don't live in these countries. We don't control them. We're not leading them. But what can we do? We can lead the change within ourselves. At least start with yourself to not be ideologically colonized. In your mind, there are these red dots, by the way. There's military bases, but the military is not a tank or nuclear bomb. It's what? What is it? It's the ideas, the values you have. They've already planted them in your mind. And that is the battle you will have to fight, inshallah. Next slide.
The next trait is Right, the next trait is يجاهدون في سبيل الله. They fight and struggle in the path of Allah. And fighting and struggling in the path of Allah is a concept which falls under a larger concept of sacrifice. And we see this the ability to sacrifice in the companions during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, right? During the Battle of Badr, which army was bigger, the Muslim army or the army of the Kuffar? The army of the Kuffar. Excellent. So, and they were 3 times larger. However, let's look at the mindset of some of the believers and some of the younger believers during that battle. Let's look at the minds of the Sahaba and the characteristics they had to see why Allah gave them victory even though their numbers were smaller. I'll give you a story of 2 companions or 2 incidents. When the Prophet ﷺ decided to take the army, all right, he called the people to come join the army, and from the people that came, it was 2 young companions. One of them was Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Umar radiallahu anhu. And he knew how old he was at that time. The time when he came to Prophet ﷺ to join the Battle of Badr? How old is he at that time? Who can take a guess? 14? Younger. He was 10 to 11 years old. He was 10 to 11 years old. So 10 to 11 years old, he was upset because he couldn't join the Prophet ﷺ in battle and risk his life. He knew what was ahead of him. He knew he would have been risking his life and putting his life on the line. He could not come back to this battle alive. It may be the last time he sees his mother. Okay? Yet, such a young boy was yet ready to sacrifice his life for the sake of Allah. The second example I want to give you is during the battle. Alright? One of the biggest enemies of the Muslims during that time was Abu Jahl. Okay? Abu Jahl was the biggest enemies of the Muslim. And during the battle, there were two young lads, there were two young boys. They were flanking Abdurrahman ibn Auf. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was one of the companions of Rasulullah, and in the battle he had two young men behind him. And he looked behind and he was kind of disappointed. I have these two young companions behind me, and he thought, like, he should have someone stronger and someone able to defend him. And then one of the young boys, one of them is maybe, there's difference opinion on the name. Some say Mu'adh and the others say Mu'awwadh. Some say they were brothers. So one of them tells Abdurrahman ibn Auf, "Oh uncle, tell me what Abu Jahl is." Okay? And Abdurrahman ibn Auf tells him, "You don't even know who he is. Why do you want to know where he is?" So he says, "Either I take him down or I get taken down in front of him." And then the one to his left says the same thing. The young man right behind him, he tells him the same thing. "Oh uncle, tell me where Abu Jahl is." And he asks him why, and he tells him the exact same reason. Either I want to take him down or get taken down in front of him. So Abdurrahman ibn Auf looked at these two people, and he maybe initially underestimated them. However, despite their age, they had high ambitions and were ready to sacrifice their life for the sake of Allah. So they charge in and they take down Abu Jahl, the biggest enemy of Islam, one of the biggest enemies of Islam at that time. And what happens after this? So one of them struck Abu Jahl, and then Abu Jahl's son, Ikrimah, he sees his dad getting struck down. So his son comes and chops off one of the arms of one of the boys, one of the young companions, and then the young companion had his arm dangling to his side during the battle. What does he do in this battle? So in the middle of the battle, he's fighting and he has his arm dangling from his shoulder, okay? And it was getting in his way. So just look at this and look at the sacrifice and the pain he's ready to endure. He puts his arm beneath his leg and rips his arm off. And he says the reason he did this is because it was getting in his path in fighting for the sake of Allah. Of course, we can't maybe physically, maybe we can't go to jihad at the moment. However, the concept is, the larger concept I'm trying to show you guys is the willingness to sacrifice even the life and the physical well-being for the sake of Allah. So you have to ask yourself, what sacrifice are you ready to make? When you're resurrected in front of Allah, okay, and Allah asks you, questions you, what are you ready to tell Allah? "Oh Allah, I sacrifice this for your sake. Oh Allah, I sacrifice this for your sake, and that proves my love for you." What are you going to tell Allah you sacrifice for his sake? Think about that question. So where do we start off to build that sense, to build that trait? The first thing we need to work on is mujahadatun nafs. Okay, mujahadatun nafs, it means an inner struggle, struggling against your ego, struggling against your inner soul, your inner ego, okay? The inner ego, your heart, can have many diseases and many bad traits, such as ego, thinking better than others, envy, wanting the blessings of others taken away, being jealous of others, and many, many diseases, and he has many signs. It is upon you to learn these diseases and its signs, and strive to fight against yourself and to sacrifice your desires. These companions we looked at, who are young, they were around your age, they were ready to sacrifice your life. You have to be ready to sacrifice your desires. Sacrifice that. Maybe you have a free night, you finish your exams, you have a free night, you can make the decision of either binging or playing games at night. However, you have to have the ability and train yourself to sacrifice that desire to do what you want, to do what pleases Allah, what will make Allah love you. Okay? Next slide. So I want you boys to watch this again one more time, these two videos. I just want to exemplify something really cool. Just read the captions. Next one. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So you can read the subtitles. I want to point out something incredible in what they say. They are making dua to Allah. if you can go back to the woman's video and just get the subtitle put out. So they were both making dua to Allah, and notice something in the dua. When you guys make dua to Allah, what do you usually do? Like, what do you usually say? Tell me. Good. Excellent. That's all I needed. So you usually make dua for something. We're usually asking Allah for things to give us. However, let's take an example. Let's take a look at this. This woman, this mother, she says, "Oh Allah, take from us until you are pleased." They're telling Allah the opposite. "Oh Allah, take from us until you are pleased." I want you guys to. The reason I'm showing these clips from Gaza is because it's inshallah it can be a sadaqah jariyah for us to learn from the traits that they exemplify, and for us to implement it, inshallah. So it can be a means of supporting them. So back to this. So this woman and this man, after seeing the devastation and losses they've endured, look what they say. They make dua to Allah. "Oh Allah, take from our souls as you please." Look at the difference in the mindset and our mindset. Look at the difference between the mindset of sacrifice and the mindset of compromise. So the ability to sacrifice has led them to this, having so much strength and resolve amidst everything that's happening around them. So inshallah, we have to try implement this by starting with sacrificing our desires and prioritizing what pleases Allah.
Let's skip it. Yeah. All right, we're just going to skip that slider just for time. So the last trait is وَلَا يَخَافُونَ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. They don't fear the blame of the blamers, meaning they don't fear what others are going to think about them when they remain steadfast upon Islam, when they take the step to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what we can summarize as courage. They have the courage to do what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if others around them make fun of them, tease them, look down upon them. This doesn't concern them. وَلَا يَخَافُونَ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. They don't fear the blame of the blamers. So what are some sources of courage? Adiyat already spoke about prioritizing Allah's pleasure and being connected to Allah. But a second important source of courage is to know your identity and history. When I said, who knows Al-Muhajirun wal-Ansar, unfortunately a lot of hands didn't go up. And that's a concerning issue. This is our identity and this is our history. We should strive to learn about it. Strive to learn who we are, where we came from, as in our lineage and our journey to coming to Australia, for example, our grandparents and their forefathers. How did Islam enter their household? And knowing the greats in our Islamic history so that we can emulate them and look up to them and follow their footsteps. But if we have no identity and no history, and if we don't seek to learn about it, we'll be weak. We will follow and adopt whatever our enemies give to us. And this is what's happening today. Those bases didn't come out of thin air. It came out because people said, our identity is our country, not Islam. So it doesn't matter. It's a Palestinian issue. I am non-Palestinian, so it doesn't affect me. It's their political issue. And I have my own political problems in my own country, so it doesn't bother me. That's the mindset that they have driven home in our minds for decades. And our history as well. When did Islam enter our countries? So if I were to ask any of you, from any country, when did Islam, do we know this answer? The sacrifices the people made for Islam to enter, for our great-grandfathers, for someone up there in the lineage to become Muslim, to accept Islam, that led you and I to be born Muslim. Do we know about these people? Yes or no? So it's something we need to work on. Number 3 is fulfilling our responsibilities towards Allah, towards ourselves, and towards others. And that sort of ties into what the message we're trying to give to you all, inshallah. That when you do what pleases Allah, when you stand up for what's right, and when you uphold justice and good character, this will give you courage. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nisa, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ فَعَلُوا مَا يُوعَظُونَ بِهِ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ وَأَشَدَّ تَثْبِيتًا. If they were to act upon what we give them reminders about, then that would be better for them. And that would be more firm, meaning they will be more steadfast as a result. How many reminders have you seen on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube? How many reminders? 10? 100? 1,000? How many have you implemented? Because if you were to implement, Allah will give you courage and steadfastness. وأشد تثبيتا وإذا لآتيناهم من لدنا أجرا عظيما ولهديناهم صراطا مستقيما. That same passage will give them immense reward, will guide them to the straight path. But what's the condition? To do what they are reminded about. To do. How many times we just flick it and we don't bring it into our life? That's not full. That is the absence or the lack of fulfilling responsibility. Next slide. So what is the obligation of our time? How can we revive the ummah? To revive the ummah, we need to build people that can carry the message of the ummah, just like the Sahaba carried the message of Islam. And for these people, they need to have certain traits. They need to have tazkiyah, a pure heart. They need to have knowledge of their religion and knowledge of their world around them, their context. They need to have a strong identity. They're not wavering as to why they're Muslim. They know about themselves and they know about the history. They need to focus on the priorities. So they know what does, the ummah is bleeding, what is the most important wound to heal first? Not there's a little cut and you've got a heart attack and you're busy band-aiding the cut. You're like, let me put some tissue on it. Yeah? No. They are addressing the major problems. They have the mindset of sacrifice, which Adiyat explained very nicely. They are willing to act upon what they know, and they apply their knowledge with wisdom, which is to do things at the right place at the right time. So for example, you may have the knowledge about a particular ruling of Islam, but wisdom is to know when to apply that ruling and whether it's a good time to apply it or not. That's what wisdom is. So we need to have a generation that is upon this. And that's our goal here at NextGen, the next generation, to build a generation that can reform the ummah. And they need to have these traits. And we'll go back to the first ayah. If you decide, it's too much effort, I don't want to be part of the generation, I'm happy where I am, فَسَوْفَ يَأْتِ اللَّهُ بِقَوْمٍ. Allah will place you with another people. Because Islam will be victorious whether you want to be a part of it or not. But the question is, do you want to be a part of Islam's victory or not? Because that's a choice you're going to make. The end result's clear. It's fixed. It's determined. It's unchangeable. That Islam will be victorious. But whether you want to be a part of that or not is up to you. Next slide. So, sorry.
Whilst the situation may look bleak, I want to leave a hadith. I want to finish off with this hadith, which gives us some hope. The Prophet ﷺ says, at the beginning of every century, Allah will send to this ummah someone who will renew its religious understanding. So Allah has promised that He will preserve the religion. إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Allah has sent down the Quran and He will preserve it. It's a promise from Allah. So you don't have to worry about that, as Ustad Labib has covered. So Allah will preserve and give victory to the religion. It's up to you if you want to be a part of it. So don't lose hope in that. And the scholars have said, explaining this hadith, that after every century, they've differed on when the century starts. Some say the century starts from the time of the Hijrah. But the idea is, every century, Allah will send someone when people have misguided from the religion, people have left the religion, people have deviated, people have turned away from the religion, as we mentioned initially in the ayah. Allah will send someone with knowledge and wisdom who will guide the people back to the straight path. So not only are you to implement the 5 characteristics and traits we've spoken about, but also you should have the hopes and the aspirations to be from these people, the people Allah uses to guide the people back to religion. And the likes of these people, the scholars have said, the mujaddideen, the people who have revived the religion Allah has used, the likes of them are Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the 5th Khalifa, Ibn Taymiyyah, by guiding the people and showing the flaws of the misguided sects, and Imam Suyuti, many Imams of the past, they've been identified to be from this hadith. So we all should be striving and have the ambition to be from those who are of this people, or at least those who support this cause and this effort.
Next slide. All right. Just to end off, we're going to have a quick fundraiser, inshallah, and I want to explain what it's about. So next event, in 2 weeks' time, we have a guest speaker named Sheikh Bilal Ismail. He's from South Africa. And he runs this program called the Imam Development Program. So just go to the next slide. What's this program about?
Miss. This madrasa, alhamdulillah, we have Dr. Khalid here, Sheikh Khalid, mashallah, he's in charge of the...
Let's go to the next slide, explain. No, yeah, I just use the images, yeah.
I've already seen many videos.
So, basically, across Africa, I think he works in, 10 countries, there are many masajid and madrasas that are very, very run down. Like, for example, look at that. Imagine MIA looked like this. Would you guys come to NextGen? Be honest. Highly unlikely. Artful. They need a lot of support and a lot of financial support. Why? As he mentioned in the video, many of these countries had large Muslim populations, about 50%, 70, 80%. But as time progressed, because there was no education, no spreading of Islam, the proportion of Muslims dropped to less than 25%. So imagine, like, every 2 people, one's Muslim. Fast forward 20 years, every 5 people, only one is Muslim. Meaning, people are leaving Islam. Why? Because there is no solid education. So what does he strive to do in his program? He tries to train imams to be skilled at delivering the message of Islam. Whether they need a simple thing like a toilet in their house, whether they need a motorbike or a car, whether they need a phone or a laptop, whether they need actual materials to teach. Like, these students need books, pen and paper, whiteboards, blackboards. They need resources. So he raises funds to build up madrasas. Next slide. So what's the plan today? This is USD, just to clarify. You need to, when we give $500 to this initiative, we raise the money for what he calls a madrasa pack. So the money will go to desks for students to actually use, educational charts, a chalkboard, 50 salah hats, 50 burqas for the sisters, floor mats, stationery, and a first aid kit. So we want to see if we can raise $500 today, minimum, and more. So the more we raise, the more madrasas we can fund. So just go to the next slide. So this is our event with him. He's going to be joining us on Zoom, inshallah. And he's going to be talking about his project and other ways we can help the ummah. Reviving the ummah starts from you. And this is a project you can help with reviving the ummah. Now I'm not going to do like an auction style. I have no experience in that. But what I would like you to do is, if you would like to donate after the salah, come and see myself or Brother Arif, smile and wave, yeah? We'll collect your funds, and inshallah, the Sheikh himself will deal with ensuring that the funds reach the right place. And he has so many, WhatsApp messages and videos showing, he actually goes to these madrasas. It's like a woman's teaching 100 students on a roof. There's no roof in the madrasa, just an open piece of block of land. So, inshallah, after salah, come and see myself or Brother Arif and donate generously so that you can be a part of the sadaqah jariyah, ongoing charity. Imagine someone learns one letter of the Quran, the reward goes back to you. Then that letter they learn, they teach it to their children, they teach it to others, and so on and so forth. They spread that knowledge. Every time someone learns from that one letter that you sponsored, you get the reward for it, inshallah. Yes, Azam. Yeah, definitely. Even if it's $10, even if it's $5, whatever you can give. Yes, sacrificing, the mindset we need to have. Right, next slide. We have just 4 minutes for Q&A. If you have a burning question, you can raise your hand or you can ask us with the QR code. Ideally, give it to us today, but if you can meet us somewhere else, you can. Yes, okay, beautiful. We'll keep this at the front. I know it says support your center, but it's for the fundraiser, inshallah. Just you can drop your cash here. if you want. I'll leave it here at the front. Any other questions? Yes. No, cash, please. Sorry. Any other questions? Oh, you take this? Yes. Yes, I just answered that question. Any other questions? Any questions about the talk? Anything you want clarification on? Hussein, any questions? I'm just going to check the link, see if anyone's asked a question. Oh, we'll wait 1 more minute. While we wait, you can line up for the salah. Get into rows. Get into rows. Can someone turn the light on? Yeah, just put it in there. Jazakallahu khairan. So, that's all right. Look, if you don't have cash on you today, you can bring the cash with you for the next event. Okay? And I'll transfer it to him after the end of the next event. All right? So just, boys, this is the bucket to donate. Please donate generously, inshallah. Who's leading?
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله